Welcome to the Bitcoin Private post-fork conference today, guys. And thanks for coming down. Thank you. All right. So I know this was last minute and everything, but it took us a while to get the venue. So today I want to go over a few things with you guys. I want to go over the Bitcoin Private post-fork. I know many of you guys participated in it and are interested in it, have lots of questions about it. And I just want to cover that today with you guys. And then we got a few bonus sessions that I want to go over with you guys afterwards too. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. So quick disclaimer, guys. Obviously, you guys know that I'm an investor in a crypto investor, so I invest in the projects that I talk about. So there's going to be an inherent conflict of interest in what I say, okay? So just be aware of that. And this is to just for fun and entertainment purposes. This is not for financial advice. So please don't ask me any buy, sell, or hold questions. Okay? Huh? Okay. Some just quick house rules, guys. Before we get started, right? So that we're all safe and secure here, right? We're here to celebrate the successful fork of Bitcoin Private, right? Please do not ask any speakers here for buy, sell, or hold advice. We are not licensed financial advisors, and the material that we share with you guys are for informational and educational purposes only, all right? Do not send any Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies to anyone here, all right? So if somebody in the audience or the crowd asks you to send them some Bitcoins or Bitcoin Private or Z Classic or anything like that, please do not send it to them, all right? Do not show your cryptocurrency wallet to anyone here either. Right, that is not safe and not safe to do in public. All right, and then do not ask anyone here to help you with any cryptocurrency wallets either. Right, if you get stuck on a wallet at home and you brought it here on purpose to get some help or something like that, please do not do that, and that is not safe. Okay, so all right, so just real quick, guys, in case you guys are new to the cryptocurrency world and don't know who we are, right? We have the first and one of the oldest cryptocurrency investing channels that we know of on the internet, right? We started broadcasting over 4 years ago about Bitcoins, cryptocurrency investing and things like that, back when people did not realize what it was. Me and my co-host, leonfu.com, he just got a new child for the first time, his daughter Lily, so he couldn't make it here, so. All right, thanks, guys. All right, so we talked about Bitcoin, invest into Bitcoins and what it is back then. Come on in, guys. Come on in, grab a seat, right? Please have a seat right here. All right, back then, and then the first altcoin or the first cryptocurrency that we talked about outside of Bitcoin was NXT right here. So that was the first video we made. And we used to make these videos just so that we can help our friends, family, and relatives learn about Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. And back then they thought we were nuts and we were crazy, and nowadays they think we're legends. Okay, so that's how it always starts, guys, right? First they think you're crazy, and then years later they think you're a legend, right? Also voted one of the top 13 and top 100 most influential people in crypto right here on these lists by the Huffington Post and by Crypto Weekly. Just because we've been in it for a while, guys. So enough about me, guys. That's just, every time I go to a cryptocurrency conference, I'm always curious who's on stage and who the hell's up there talking, right? So let's get into the meat and potatoes here of tonight's conference, guys. I want to talk about, just real quick so that you guys understand, on our team at cryptocurrency.market, we classify the 1,500 plus cryptocurrencies out on the market right now. We classify them into what we call buckets, right? So for example, in the currency bucket, we have things such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and even Tether that's mainly used as a currency. And then in another bucket, we call the distributed computing bucket. And these are things like Filecoin, MadeSafe, Sidecoin, Golem, StorageCoin, Gladius. And in the last one is the one that we'll be mostly focused on today, is the privacy coin bucket. And in that bucket, we have Zcash at the top, Monero, Z Classic, Komodo, Zencash, Bullberry, Bitcoin Private, Particle, Pivx, and Navcoin. Now there's more than that, guys, but those are the more popular ones, right? And so we classify on our team these 1,500 cryptocurrencies. We classify them into the buckets because that's like their main focus. Okay, so today we're talking about Bitcoin private. So let's get into that. So a real quick history of Bitcoin private and how it came about for the people that are new to the space, right? So Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency that was ever created by a gentleman or by a person named Satoshi Nakamoto. Could be a man, could be a woman, nobody knows. He or she is still anonymous to this day, right? But what we do know is that this technology exists, and it was a very revolutionary technology that is disrupting the financial markets. It's the first time in human history that we have a distributed ledger of accounting that is public and is distributed worldwide, and there's a lot of computers out in the world that have a copy of that ledger, and we can all access that ledger and read the transactions in it. We don't need permission from someone to read it. We don't need permission from the governments or banks or institutions or Wall Street to be able to write transactions to that ledger. And once the transactions are written into that public ledger called Bitcoin, once that ledger is written in there, and then the majority of the network agrees that that transaction was correct, right? Then it stays in there permanently, and there's no way to go back and change it, right? So from Bitcoin, the first one of the projects, one of the challenges we have with Bitcoin is that it does not have a strong privacy feature, right? The transactions that are on there are what's known as anonymous, which means that you just don't know who the name of that person is, and you just see a long string of numbers and characters, but you don't know that that's me unless I publicly identify myself and say that this account number belongs to me, and the transactions that I did in that account are my transactions, and then I can send the transaction and verify that I am in control of that account. Otherwise, you don't know who it is that owns that account, okay? So, but it's not 100% anonymous. There are government agencies and there are companies out there that are building very high-tech software that can scan the entire Bitcoin ledger and be able to calculate where the transactions are coming from, and then they can somehow trace it back to you. And there are people out there in the cryptocurrency space that do not like that idea that their currency can be traced. So originally Bitcoin was created as an electronic cash. So if you think about it, if I give you a $100 bill, right, or any type of paper currency or cash, once you put it in your pocket and you walk away, then no one else knows that that transaction occurred between you and I, except for you and I, unless one of us tells somebody. But even if I tell somebody that I gave you that $100 bill, there's no way to trace it back once you take off with it, okay? But in Bitcoin, there are ways to do it because it's a public ledger, so anyone can scan that ledger, and through, very different processes, you can reconstruct where all the Bitcoins are coming from, what account, and who the user is. So a lot of people have been trying to work on making it so that it's 100% private, so the sender's identity and the receiver's identity and even the amount that was transacted are completely private, so that no one knows what it is, okay? And the term that everyone uses in the privacy coin world is a term called obfuscation. And it's a fancy, super duper fancy word that just simply means that it's not legible, that you can't tell for sure what the quantity is or who the sender or who the recipient is, okay? So one of the team of academics out there from the Zcash team, what they did was they created what's called Zcash. And these are academics, they're like some of the world's top mathematicians and cryptographers. And what they did was they created a technology called ZK snarks that is supposedly, academically, it's supposed to be the most powerful privacy technology on the market. And they tried to incorporate it into Bitcoin, and the team that builds Bitcoin, they were not interested in it. So what these guys did was they just started their own. They took the code base, the software from Bitcoin, and then they just created their own coin called Zcash. And then they implemented that ZK snarks technology into it, right? There was one downside to that though. Since it was a private company that started building this, a lot of people didn't like that. There's a lot of libertarians, there's a lot of anarchists, and there's a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space that does not like the idea that there's a 20% haircut that goes to the founders and the private investors that started the Zcash company, right, to build this software technology. So there's a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space that just don't like the idea that these guys are skimming 20% off the top when the new coins are minted. It automatically goes into their pocket, right?
Can we consider that like a fork?
Yes, so this would be considered a fork. No, it's a hard fork, right? Yeah, it completely took the code and completely created a new coin from it, but its origins are still from Bitcoin, right? So now there was a guy named Rhett Creighton who is a computer scientist from MIT, and he saw that these guys, he liked the idea about the privacy, but it really bothered him that these guys were taking 20% off the top every time a new coin was minted, right, in the network. So what he did was he took the exact same code and he went there and he studied it, and he realized that if he removes 20 lines of software code inside the software, then it would remove that 20% founder's fee, right? Founder's reward. And that was, so he did that, and he started what's called Zclassic, right? So Zclassic is a fork off of Zcash without the 20% founder's reward, okay? And then after Zclassic was forked, there was some challenges where Bitcoin does not have a final governance or a funding issue, right? So they don't have a way to fund it like these guys did, and they don't have a final decision-making process to where there's major decisions that needs to be made inside to update the software. There's no way for the community to formally vote on the update or the changes that need to be made to the software. So what Zcash did was that they said, hey, we like this because it's the best version of Bitcoin so far. It does the same thing that Bitcoin does, except it has the 100% privacy and the best privacy technology on it. And what it's missing is a mechanism to help the project get funded and get developed, because the blockchain software engineers are not cheap. They're highly expensive. They usually range between anywhere between in the low 200,000 a year to like 500,000 a year for the blockchain software engineers. Okay, so they need a mechanism to pay for it. And so what the guys from the Zclassic community did was, hey, we can't go on for free like this forever. So what they did was they took the software, the Zclassic software, they made a copy of it, and they forked it and started a project called Zcash. So Zcash solves two major problems that Zclassic and Bitcoin has, is that it has a final decision-making and conflict resolution process called a governance, and then it also has a what's called a treasury, where a portion of the new coins that are minted, it goes into this community pool. It doesn't go to the founders, it goes into a community pool, and then people who want to do things to improve the project, they can submit a proposal and request funding, and then the community will vote on it. So if we were all the Zcash community, each one of us, like if I wanted to pay for this conference and the meeting space and the food and beverages here, I can submit that proposal to the Zcash community, and then everyone in the community, they'll see my proposal, and then each person can vote on it, yay or nay. Right? Now, obviously, you have to own some Zcash in order to vote for it. You can't just be a random person from the outside and come into the network and just vote. All right? So that was how that all started. And then what happened was, after Zcash forked off of Zclassic, the gentleman that originally created Zclassic, named Rhett Creighton, the computer scientist from MIT, right? He is, I have spoken with him multiple times, and he has this mindset that he believes, you know, he's a scientist, he likes to experiment and do social experiments on these blockchains. And what he did was he decided, hey, you know what, one of the problems that Bitcoin has is that it doesn't have privacy. What if I make an attempt to fork Zclassic back into Bitcoin? So everyone has been forking away or outwards, away from Bitcoin. And then when Rhett came along, he was the first computer science scientist out there to fork a coin back into Bitcoin. And that was what makes it so revolutionary, because this is the first time in blockchain history that has ever been done, because everyone forks outwards, not inwards. So Bitcoin Private was the first project that forked Zclassic back into Bitcoin and then they added the ZK Snarks technology, the privacy technology that was invented by Zcash. They forked it back into Bitcoin. So now we have a baby Bitcoin called Bitcoin Private, which has the ZK Snarks privacy technology that was originally created by the Zcash team. Yes?
So forking basically means two separate histories.
Yeah.
Forking back in, what does it mean exactly? Like from a history?
It means that they airdrop, well, that means they drop the tokens, the new Bitcoin private tokens. So for every Bitcoin that you own at the time of the fork, you get one Bitcoin private. And then for every Z Classic that you own during the time of the fork, you also get one Bitcoin private for every one of those. So if I own Bitcoins only, when they fork, I get a new Bitcoin private to match whatever amount that I have. So if I have 10 Bitcoin private, Bitcoins in my wallet, then I'll get 10 Bitcoin private. If I have 10 Z Classic, then I'll get 10 Bitcoin private. So what's the catch to that? The catch was that Z Classic at the time that the announcement was made, it was somewhere less than $10. And this was around like above $10,000. So if somebody wanted Bitcoin private tokens, they can either go get a Bitcoin that's worth over $10,000, or they can get a Z Classic token that's worth around 10, 15, 20 bucks. So the natural, the investors out there, what they did was they piled in to get Z Classic because it was a lower cost than Bitcoin itself. And that's why the price of Z Classic shot up to like $240 in like a few weeks. Okay, so all right, so the snapshot was completed on February 28th, as noted here by the Bitcoin private tweet right here. And what a snapshot is that at a certain block, right? So because it's a blockchain technology, the blocks are created every few minutes. Here's a block of data of all the transactions, and then comes the next block, and then the next block gets added to the blockchain, right? And they are numbered, whatever the number is, and at this block height, which means at that block number, and at this block number for Bitcoin, 511,000, at that block number, that's when the snapshot begins. So what that means is that at that point, at 272,000 on the Z Classic blockchain, everybody, whatever amount of Z Classic tokens that you have in your Z Classic wallet at that time, the system is going to take a photo of it and keep it on record, so they know to put the correct amount of Bitcoin private tokens in everyone's wallet. So that process is called an airdrop. So they can airdrop the tokens the correct amount. So if you have one Z Classic, and you have two Z Classic, and you have three, and you have four Z Classic, then they'll know to put one in your account, put two in your account, 3 and 4, and so on. Okay, and then on the Bitcoin blockchain, it was done at the height of 511,000, right there. Okay, so that was done on February 28th, and so that takes, because the Bitcoin blockchain is made up of 511,000 blocks. Obviously, that's going to take a little bit longer than the Z Classic blockchain because there was only 272,000 blocks in it, right? And then after the snapshot was done, the Bitcoin private fork was completed on March 3rd. So a few days later, within like 3 days, after a photo was taken of the entire blockchain, they were able to finish the fork and distribute all the airdrop, all the Bitcoin private tokens in everyone's Bitcoin and Z Classic accounts, okay? So now, if you notice it says BTCP right there, that's the symbol for Bitcoin private, okay? So the BTC stands for Bitcoin and the P stands for private, right? So as you can see on their Twitter feed here, on March the 2nd, right, they begin the process of the forking it, right, and from Z Classic and Bitcoin into Bitcoin private, and then the next day the fork was finished and the mainnet was launched. The mainnet means that the new Bitcoin private blockchain was made public, and so now everyone can come and read it, and everyone can come and start writing transactions to that public ledger, okay? So, and then, so after that happened, I want to pause for a moment, and let's give an applause to the Rhett and team and the Bitcoin private team, for the successful snapshot and the successful fork of Bitcoin private. Now this is new, guys. This is the first time in blockchain history that this has ever been done. And this was the first official Bitcoin private conference that we held in Austin, Texas. So we had a huge audience there. There was a team there, and then there was a Rhett was here. It's kind of hard to see in the photo, but I just want to take this moment and just thank everyone in the Bitcoin private team and the community for their awesome hard work to get this done, right? So I want to just update everyone on the current status of the Bitcoin private community and their network, right? As of right now, they have over 11,000 members on Telegram. And just to give you an idea, the biggest blockchain project out there, the last time I checked, was a project called Polymath out of Canada. And they have slightly over 50,000 Telegram followers. And so just to give you guys, what the highs and the lows are, the projects that are not very popular, they only have maybe a few hundred or maybe 1,000 or 2,000 Telegram followers. A project, any cryptocurrency project that has, above 5,000 is decent, and then above 10,000, that's really good. So that means that it has a pretty sizable community, right? Right now, KuCoin and Bittrex are the two exchanges that are distributing the Bitcoin privates. So what happens is the Bitcoin private team recommended that you keep your Z Classic or Bitcoin tokens inside your personal wallet so that it's safe. But there are some people that are either they're lazy, they don't know how, or they don't want to, or for whatever personal reasons, they want to keep it on the exchanges. And so at the exchange called KuCoin and the exchange called Bittrex, KuCoin is a very, very small exchange. Bittrex is one of the biggest exchanges out there. And so what they did was that after the fork happened, they went through, they got the wallet software and the updates from the Bitcoin private team, and they were implemented in their exchange. And then now they can split the Bitcoin private tokens from the Z Classic tokens, and then they're able to distribute it to the users. Okay. When they distribute it, it does not mean that they are listing the token, the Bitcoin private token, on the exchange for trading, okay? It just simply means that they are giving you the tokens that belong to you because you had your Z Classic or your Bitcoin tokens on their exchange at the time of the fork, right? Right now, the Bitcoin private team is working on a Trezor and a Ledger hardware wallet integration. What that means is that those are probably two of the most reputable and two of the most safest, that's kind of redundant there, most safest, but but they're the two more reputable hardware wallets out there. And they have, last I checked, they have already submitted the Trezor software and they're working on the Ledger, I think, and they're going to submit it to those companies so those companies can review it and audit the software code to make sure it's legit, to make sure it's safe, there's no bugs, there's no viruses or Trojans in there. And then once they confirm that it's good to go, then they'll implement it into their hardware wallet, and then that means that you and I can start storing the Bitcoin privates on the Trezor and the Ledger hardware wallets. Yes?
Are we also going to be able to get, because my Bitcoins are in my Ledger.
Yes.
On Nano. After they get all that done, are we be able to collect more coins from the fork?
Yes. So the question is, you have your Bitcoins currently stored on a Ledger hardware wallet, and after the integration is done and it gets accepted by Ledger or Trezor, does that mean, are you able to collect and be able to transfer your Bitcoin private tokens? And the answer is yes. After Trezor reviews the code and they approve of it and they implement it into their hardware wallets, then you're able to access it, right? So number 4 here, working on the team is now working on implementing full SegWit support. So that is a technology that allows the blockchain to scale to increase the number of transactions and allow other, let's just call it accessories, to be going on top of the Bitcoin private blockchain, okay? And then the team is also continuing work and testing the Bitcoin private Electrum wallet to make sure it's better and it's safer for everyone to use. They're still doing that. And then also the Bitcoin private team is also setting up a Bitcoin private ambassador program, and right now they have over 700 people that's involved in the ambassador program. So what that means is that the people that are interested or wants to participate in the Bitcoin private community or help the project, like what our team is doing right now, you guys can sign up for the Bitcoin, private ambassador program and help spread the word about Bitcoin private, right? It's not like a paid gig or something. We do this on a volunteer basis because we like the project, right? And also because we are investors in the project too. So obviously there's an inherent conflict of interest there as we're talking here about it, right? The other thing too is that the team is also working on coin payments CoinOpay, Stripe, Globi integration, and those are payment solutions. So at this event center here that we're at, if they want to start accepting Bitcoin private tokens as payment for their food and beverages, or even for the rental of this meeting space here, then they'll have to use one of these payment solutions to be able to accept it. Okay, so like for you guys want to accept Bitcoin private as a payment at your coffee shop, then you'll have to look at one of those payment solutions once they integrate it in order to accept payment Bitcoin private as a payment. Somebody raise their hand on this side? Okay, all right. So also right now the Bitcoin private team is looking for advisors. That means that they're looking for people that can help expand the network, help bring to get some of these payment solution companies to accept Bitcoin private as a payment token on their network, and they're looking for legal advisors and all kinds of stuff to help expand the community. Okay, they're also publishing periodic community reports on the Bitcoin private blog. It's on Medium, right? Just search for it. And what they want to do with that is outline the short and long-term goals of Bitcoin private, outline some of the setbacks that they're running into, and also their goal is to be transparent with the Bitcoin private community. Okay. Now, I just want to, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, guys. You guys keep hearing me say over and over that, the Bitcoin private team, okay? So just so you guys know, I am not on the Bitcoin private team, okay? Some people think just because I, talk about it, that I'm like their spokesperson or something like that, okay? That is not true, okay? I just am one of the investors in their project, in their token, and I believe in privacy. And then later on, I'll have Regan from our team. She's our privacy advocate. She'll come up and talk to you guys some of the reasons why we support a lot of these privacy coin projects, because we, on our team, we believe in the human right to privacy, okay? So I just want to say that. I'm just a volunteer from the Bitcoin private community to share this information and knowledge with you guys, all right? The other thing too is that Bitcoin private is traded at these exchanges right now, such as Trade Satoshi, Nanex.co. These are very, very small exchanges, guys. It's at BarterDex and at xrates.me. I just want to make a note here, guys. Volume is very low, so please do your due diligence. I personally don't trade at places that have such extremely low volume like that, because it's extremely volatile for the price. Usually, I want to wait until it gets more volume trading before I look to make any buy or sell transactions in the Bitcoin private. Okay, so but those are the current exchanges based on my research that's currently doing it. BarterDex is anytime you guys see DEX, that stands for Decentralized Exchange. And so the Barter Decentralized Exchange is also known as the Komodo platform. It's the technology, the decentralized exchange that's built by the Komodo team, cryptocurrency team, right? The other thing too is that I'm going to spend a few moments on this, because a lot of people online are complaining about this process, and they don't understand what's going on in the background and what the Bitcoin private team is doing on the background. So I just want to share with you guys really quick in the audience here what is going on in the background, so that you guys don't get frustrated. And if you guys are listening on this on video later on, you guys are not frustrated when you guys are seeing this happen, okay? So right now, the Bitcoin private team is putting in applications that are pending at these exchanges called KuCoin, at Robinhood, Binance, Bittrex, Panda Exchange, and HitBTC, right? Now, the two major exchanges are here, Binance and Bittrex. Binance is the biggest cryptocurrency exchange in the world right now. At least that's what their CEO is saying. And Bittrex is also, these two are major cryptocurrency exchanges in the world. They do like like massive volume each day, okay? These other ones that's on the list are extremely small exchanges, okay? Very small, and some of them have extremely low liquidity, all right? So the ones that everybody wants to see Bitcoin private traded on is Binance and Bittrex, and there's been a lot of commotion, there's a lot of complaining, and there's a lot of frustration online. And I know I've talked to people offline also that they're frustrated because Bitcoin private is not being traded on Binance or Bittrex or at a major exchange. Now, let me just walk you guys through this process of how exchange listings happen, right? Some people say that you got to pay like $200,000, $150,000, $500,000 to these exchanges to get your token listed on there. Now, I don't know how true it is because I have never had to pay somebody to list a coin. First of all, I don't own any coins that need to be listed on there, right? In other words, I'm not a cryptocurrency developer. I'm not a software engineer, so I haven't built a cryptocurrency yet that needed to be listed on an exchange. So I don't know what the exact cost is, but word on the street is that it usually ranges from $150 all the way up to as high, I've heard, as $500,000 to get your cryptocurrency listed on the exchange. Now, I can assure you, right, with a high degree of confidence, it's not a guarantee, but it is my strongest opinion that money is not an issue with getting Bitcoin private listed on one of the major exchanges, because I've been in the cryptocurrency community long enough to know that there are a bunch of whales out there and there's a bunch of volunteers that if all it takes is $500,000 to get the coin listed on an exchange, there's a bunch of whales out there that will pay for it out of their pocket. Well, the Bitcoin private team may not even need to do that. So when everybody says online, the trolls from other projects that want to troll Bitcoin private, and they want to misinform the Bitcoin private community, they're saying that it's because of the Bitcoin private team is being cheap and they don't want to pay for it. And in my opinion, that is not true at all, and that's not a fair accusation, because I know that that is $500,000 or any amount like that. I have seen people in the past that would offer to do that, to pay for that. Okay, so I can't imagine that is the main obstacle. The main obstacle that's preventing Bitcoin private or any cryptocurrency from being listed on an exchange is the exchange itself. Whatever criteria that they use to list your token, nobody knows. Okay, they don't go and tell the world that, hey, here's the criteria right here. If you meet these criteria, we'll list your coin. They don't do that. Okay, and let's just say that the people that's from the Bitcoin private community or the team has applied to get the exchange listings. If the exchange has a desire to list the token, they are going to require that the applicant sign a non-disclosure agreement. And they have to keep it a secret, and they cannot disclose to the public that it's being reviewed and it's getting processed. All they can say is that we have submitted the application and it's pending review. That is the normal process. If anyone tells you guys, right, that they have inside information, or they know that it's going through this process and it's at this stage and it's about to get accepted and listed on the exchange, they're full of BS. Okay, because they will not know. And the guys that pay the money and submit the application to get listed, they want their token listed. They're not going to violate the non-disclosure agreements with the exchange, right? And the reason why they do that is so that the people don't try to front run or don't try to pump it or things like that, because that's illegal in the US to do. So you cannot front run other traders. Okay, so when the exchange gets it listed, they want to do it quietly and they want to do it silently, and then one day they just announce that, hey, the tokens are listed. And that's the standard procedures for a token to be listed on an exchange. So if anyone out there tells you guys that they have inside information on when the token is going to get listed, I would not believe any of that. Okay, I would believe it if they just said that the application is pending or it's in the process. Okay. And then, so please be patient with the Bitcoin private team. It's not easy getting listed on an exchange, guys. I know this, resources and talent to facilitate an exchange listing does not appear to be a problem. There's enough people working on it, and there's enough funding to cover any cost that's involved in it. So I don't see the talent or the funding as an issue with getting Bitcoin private listed. It's the hurdle is not with the Bitcoin private team, it's with the exchange, and whatever reason that they choose not to list the token, they're not going to tell anyone. So nobody knows. So everyone can do is just sit and wait and hope that one day they list it. All right? Any questions on that, guys? Because that seems to be like the most contentious or the troubling issue that's troubling the Bitcoin private community at the moment. Yes, you first.
It's the price of, I haven't acquired very many of them. And
Okay.
I would like to. And the price is, I think, in the 70s or something like this right now. It depends on.
So what's your question?
Well, how to acquire more.
Okay, the question is how do you acquire more Bitcoin private tokens?
Right.
Okay, so you would have to wait, until it gets listed on an exchange that's safe, that has enough liquidity before you consider that.
You don't think it'd be safe to?
I just bought some on you had on the prior slide. It's the Nano.
Yeah, the Nanex.
Nanex,
Yeah.
It's down to $40 right now. It's
$40.
Okay. So, like I said, I'm not a financial advisor, so I cannot tell you when to buy, sell, or hold anything.
Yeah, I know.
But the exchanges I listed on there is the exchanges that are that the Bitcoin private website stated that they are currently listing the tokens on there for trading. And I have not bought or sold any Bitcoin private tokens on any of those exchanges, so I cannot make any comment on that. Okay. All right. So I hope that this explains it for you guys and for the folks at home, because this seems to be a huge problem, and there's a lot of trolls online from other projects that put on Twitter and things like that it's because the Bitcoin private doesn't want to pay for the listing, and I don't believe that to be true at all. Okay, all right, so let's talk about the temporary funding that Bitcoin private is going through right now and how they are paying for the development, the marketing, and their operations. I estimate that they have between $1 to $2 million in donations. The reason why I say $1 to $2 million, such a wide span, is that they were able to get donations with slightly over $2 million, but I'm not sure how the tax implications are for getting that. So I'm going to assume that they're going to have to give up a big chunk of it to the U.S. government for taxes, and because of that, that's why I put $1 to $2 million in donations. All right. So right now, the funding is controlled by 5 committee members. 2 of those members are miners, and the other 3 are operations folks. So these are the 5 people that have the keys to control where the funds get moved. So I think it's like 3 out of those 5 have to sign off on it before the funds are moved. All right. So these donations are used to pay for exchange listing fees, for developers to build the software, for marketing, right, for legal fees, and for reimbursements for the lawyers and the folks that were involved, and the software engineers that were involved in working on the project prior to the fork. All right. So that's how they're being funded right now. And then in a minute, I'll talk about some of the challenges they're going to face with the funding, right? So real quick, I want to talk about a couple of key innovations that Bitcoin Private has brought to the blockchain space, into the cryptocurrency community, right? And I want to share with you guys that these key innovations of Bitcoin Private go beyond just your typical blockchain technology of what a blockchain is, or what cryptography or private, privacy technologies. The 2 key innovations that I personally see here, right, is the inward fork into Bitcoin to quickly create a user-based community. So before, right, the success of any cryptocurrency, guys, is based on the size of their community. And the bigger your community is, the better chance you have of success, of your project becoming a success. And what they did was they forked inwards into Bitcoin, and by airdropping the Bitcoin private tokens in every Bitcoin wallet, that means that whether you want to or not, you got Bitcoin private tokens in your wallet. And so what that means is that now you are part of their community and a member of their community, right? So you don't have a choice. You got the Bitcoin private tokens, whether you want it or not. So now you are part of the Bitcoin private community. And I think that that's a very innovative way to create a cryptocurrency community around your token or around your coin, is by giving it out to everyone that has Bitcoin or Z Classic. And now you have like millions of people now that own Bitcoin private. Okay? Yes?
The whole team of the Z Classics, everybody's working on Bitcoin private now too. It's like exactly the same team.
Yeah, and I'm going to go over that in a minute. So your question is, is the Z Classic team working on Bitcoin private only right now? And I'm going to get to that in a minute. Okay. So the other key innovation here is the way that Bitcoin private was able to raise donations and funding to pay for the development of their project. And it's the first time in blockchain history where the project funding was via what's called GPU hashing to a donation pool, right? I'm sure somebody will come up with a shorter term for that, but what they did was they just borrowed graphics cards from everyone's computers. So if you had a graphics card on your computer that can process the Bitcoin, the Z Classic transactions, you would just point your graphics card at their mining pool and you would just help them process transactions, and that was how they raised the funding for it. And what that did was that for every one Z Classic that your graphics card produced, right, after the fork, you would receive anywhere between 1.5 to 5 Bitcoin private tokens as a reward, right? So if you just held one Bitcoin, if you were doing the processing and the mining yourself, and you received one Z Classic and you held on to it, after the fork you only got one Bitcoin private. But if you volunteer your graphics card to their mining pool, every Z Classic that you produce inside that mining pool, when they fork the one Z Classic that you produce inside their donation pool, you would get 1.5 to 5 Bitcoin privates in return for loaning your graphics card to the network. Make sense, everyone? So it was a quick 50% all the way up to 500% token reward for donating your graphics cards and letting them borrow it for a few weeks, for I think it was 3 weeks, right? So at the end result was that it was around 3. So for every Z Classic that you minted with your graphics card, you got 3, on average, about 3 Bitcoin private tokens in return for it. And that whole process took about less than a month, if I remember it correctly. Okay? So, any questions on that? All right. So, so I've said a lot of good stuff about Bitcoin private. So I want to share with you guys 2 challenges that I personally see that's facing Bitcoin private. All right. So one is a lack of a formal governance process. All right. So before we go into what this problem is, let's look at what Bitcoin is going through. So when Bitcoin upgraded, they came out with this new software feature called segregated witness, they shorten it by calling it SegWit. And what it does is it allows you to remove some of the data from the block as the network is creating new blocks. And it's a way that once this technology, this segregated SegWit technology gets implemented onto the blockchain technology, right, they allow other secondary layers of technology to go on top of Bitcoin that can do a bunch of other stuff that's supposed to make things faster and cheaper and lower cost, right? And it took them over 3 years, and still the network has not been updated to this segregated witness technology. And the reason is because there's people in the Bitcoin community that want the segregated witness, and there's people in the community that don't want it. And there's no resolution, there's no conflict resolution process to come to a final conclusion on it and to implement that conclusion. And that whole entire process, that decision-making process, is called a governance. And what Bitcoin private is missing is that formal governance process where the members of the Bitcoin private community can vote on what they want, and then after it's voted, then it gets implemented, right? So right now there's no formal decision-making and implementation process in Bitcoin private, so there's no conflict resolution process. And as the project scales and it gets bigger and bigger, and there's new features that need to be added to the software, they're going to run into the exact same problems that Bitcoin has run into in the past. And I want to share this information with you guys when you guys look at the Bitcoin private project, so that you guys see the good side and the bad side about it, because I don't want you guys just to think that I'm up here just talking about the good privacy features of Bitcoin private and that's it, right? So currently their governance process is based on what I call the Good Old Boys Club, and it's made up of 5 committee members who control the keys to their money, to their funding. And those are the guys that's making all the decisions, right? You guys remember what the golden rule is, right? He who has the gold makes the rules, right? So it doesn't matter how many millions of people are in the cryptocurrency, in the Bitcoin private community. The guys that's holding the money, controlling the money, those are the guys that's going to determine what gets done to the software, all right? So the committee members are not formally elected or voted by the Bitcoin community. It was just a bunch of guys that got together and volunteered themselves to control the money and to raise the money and then to control it, right? So Bitcoin private will struggle to scale. That means that to get mainstream adoption and to get users, just like Bitcoin does, all right, because they don't have that formal governance process. The second challenge that Bitcoin private's running into, okay, is that they lack a long-term funding mechanism. So what's going to happen after that $1 to $2 million runs out? How are they going to continue paying for all the software engineers, pay for the marketing and things like that, right? So nothing gets done without money. People only work free for so long, right? So large-scale adoption of Bitcoin private will require more than just volunteerism, right? They're going to need a way to pay for the people that work on the project, right? And blockchain engineering talent costs money. The last I checked, it runs anywhere between $200,000 to $500,000 a year to pay for a good software engineer. And so if you're not paying that, then you're not going to get the best software engineers out there to work on your blockchain. All right? Any questions on that? Now this is something that people keep ignoring, guys. This is a real problem inside Bitcoin private, inside Bitcoin Core, inside Bitcoin Cash, and inside a lot of projects. Okay? So this is not the only one that has that problem. Yes?
For the engineers, is there constant updating need to be done to the software?
Yes.
Is that why?
Yes. All software needs to constantly be updated. The more users that are using the software, the more that it needs to be updated, because people are going to find bugs, right? When you have 1 million users on a software, people are going to run into problems that 10 users are not going to run into. So the software is being used for all kinds of different ways, and there's all these bugs. And then with blockchain technology, if there's a bug that's serious, people can lose money. So because of that, they need the top software engineers around to find those bugs so they can figure it out, right? All right, so that's what I have right there, so I invite you guys to throw some questions at me if you guys have any questions about Bitcoin private. And just keep in mind this, guys, the answers are coming from a personal opinion based on my experience and research, and it's not the opinions of the Bitcoin private team, okay? I'm just a volunteer inside the community. So I'm just gonna leave this up here while I answer the questions in case anyone needs our contact info to get in touch with me. I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, in my own mind, why would Bittrex, after having 90% of the volume, not support the fork? And I was trying to figure out why is it that no one seems to be in a hurry as far as the major exchanges to list it, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I thought that was different about this fork to all other forks is that this is a fork of an existing coin into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it from the exchange's perspective, where when that happens, you have to shut everything down from Snapshot, right?
Yeah.
And so my thought was, if you've got other coins going, hey, look how good it worked for them. They turned a $10 coin into a $100 coin, and everybody wants to do that. That's
Okay.
a lot of shutting down. That's a lot of missed opportunities.
Okay, what's your name again?
Eric.
Huh?
I'm Eric.
Eric, okay.
I haven't really been talking about that.
Okay, so Eric made a very valid point, guys. I'll just try to regurgitate what you just said there, repeat what you said. Eric made a comment for you, some of those that are home watching this. He said that his personal belief is that the reason why the major exchanges are not listing Bitcoin private on the exchange, such as Bittrex or Binance, is because they don't want to set a precedence and see that, and let people see that, hey, if they list it, then other projects and other people are going to try to fork inwards into different coins and then start creating a whole mess, because they have to shut down Bitcoin's wallet and they have to shut down the Z Classic wallet, for a day or two while they update the software to split the Bitcoin private tokens from the Z Classic tokens and from the Bitcoin tokens. Okay. Now shutting down Z Classic, just so you guys know, is not a big deal, but shutting down the Bitcoin wallets to remove the Bitcoin private tokens from that wallet is a massive undertaking, and there's a lot of security issues that go along. And so I do agree with Eric here that if there was a reason why the major exchanges are not listing Bitcoin private, I will have to agree that that is the best assessment on the market right now, or the best reason why the major exchanges are choosing not to list Bitcoin private, because they're afraid that if they set that precedent, then other projects will try to do the same thing, and then everyone will start forking inwards into existing cryptocurrencies that's already on the exchange, and what that's going to Can you check with him real quick, Rob? So what's going to happen is that it's going to entice everyone else to do the same thing with the coins that's already existing on the exchange, and that could be a massive problem. Okay, so that I agree with Eric's assessment here about that.
I'm surprised that nobody's talking about it. So
Well, because the reason why a lot of people don't talk about it is because that's not what they want to hear. You know, I mean, that's just the natural human nature, is that they don't want to see the reason, the underlying business reason why the exchange doesn't want to shut down, temporarily shut down to handle these hard forks, right, or these airdrops, because it disrupts their current business. And most investors, they don't see that. They don't see that, hey, it's costing the exchange a ton of money. The investor, all they see is that, hey, they're trading all this volume and they're getting a 0.25% transaction fees on it. Why aren't they doing it? And there's other business reasons why they would not do it. Okay? And you had a question over there?
Yeah, well, the question is, it is maybe just your personal opinion on it, as you probably know a lot more about the project than we do. Because I follow the community.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are concerning about the team kind of going over to the Bitcoin private and kind of let it go to Zcash.
Okay, so that's a valid concern. Your question is, you know, the community is concerned that the Bitcoin private team has abandoned the Z Classic, right? And they want to go into that. They want to go into that. And I'm going to. I know I told you earlier that I was going to answer that and I was going to bring it up, you know. But I actually have a whole presentation on that, right? So if you can just hold off another 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll take care of that for you. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions on the? Yes.
How do you think that the governance issue is going to get resolved?
When I talked to Rhett Creighton, the computer scientist that started Bitcoin Private, the founder of Bitcoin Private and Z Classic, when I spoke with him, he was aware of it. So it's not like he's oblivious or he's ignorant of it. He is fully aware that the governance is an issue. The concern that he has is that he's afraid that the community, when I talked to him, he was afraid that the community might be against it. So he doesn't want to push the issue. Because a lot of people don't understand what governance is. It's a decision-making process, and because the name is called governance, when you tell people that it needs a decision-making process, they don't understand that. And when you say governance, they say, oh, you want the government involved. No, we don't like you. No, get them out of here. So they think that it has to do with government, and it has nothing to do with the government. It can involve the government, but it doesn't have to. Governance just means a decision-making or a conflict resolution process. Okay? Someone else? You had a question, Rob? Okay. All right, guys. So this will conclude this section on the Bitcoin Private post fork. And so if you guys like this type of material, you can follow us at cryptocurrency.market/newsletter, or you can follow me and my co-host leonfu.com at HeyTaiZen or at LeonCFu. All right. So this will conclude this broadcast, guys.
One thing that